Okay, let's just get right into this. You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, right? You've just finished a completely brutal 12-hour shift on the production floor. Your feet are aching, you've still got the hum of the press ringing in your ears, and literally all you want to do is clock out, get in your car, and go home. But right there, right between your shift ending and the next operator's shift starting, is this tiny, critical window of time. And it dictates exactly how the next 12 hours are going to go. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack what I consider the absolute ultimate life hack for your sanity out there on the floor. We call it the Handshake Protocol.
40%. Yeah, that number sounds absolutely wild, but studies actually show that shift handovers take up under 5% of an operator's time, yet they are the hidden saboteurs responsible for roughly 40% of plant incidents. Think about that. 40%. It is, without a doubt, the single highest leverage minute of your working day.
So, you kind of have to ask yourself, why does the absolute shortest part of your day cause the most problems? Well, think about our daily reality for a second. You clock in, grab your coffee, walk up to the press, hit start, and boom, immediately you get hit with a fault. And you know what the worst part is? You just know the outgoing operator definitely knew about that little quirk, but they didn't mention it because they were rushing out the door. We've all been there.
And this really gets to the core reality we're dealing with here. The press carries zero memory across operators. It's a machine. It doesn't know what happened 2 hours ago. If a piece of information isn't specifically, verbally transferred during that shift handshake, it simply does not exist for the next 12 hours. For real, the handshake is literally the only memory the press actually has. Now, a lot of times, we kind of confuse a handshake with just a conversation. You know, a casual chat as you're grabbing your coat, something social and open-ended. But a true system handshake that is mandatory, clearly defined, and double-checked. So I want you to reframe how you see this. This isn't some HR red tape. It's an operator-to-operator contract. It's a literal shield that actively protects you from inheriting a total disaster.
Let's actually look at why these handovers fail. Look, when you miss something, it usually isn't a personal failure, okay? It's a system failure. Like, think about end-of-shift fatigue. You're running on fumes at the end of 12 hours and details just naturally drop. Or what about the unspoken bypass? You put a temporary workaround in place hours ago, it worked, it became invisible to you, and whoops, you totally forgot to mention it. These are totally normal, highly relatable failure modes, but they are entirely preventable if you have a little bit of structure.
Which brings us to this pattern recognition truth you've probably seen on the floor 100 times. If a workaround has to be reinvented, look at the handshake. If you are calling maintenance twice for the exact same root cause, your handshake failed. Recurring waste at 12-hour intervals is almost always a communication problem. It's not a technical machine problem.
Okay, so the crucial point is, how do we actually fix it? Well, we use something called the SWITH sequence, SWITCH. This is our 6-step survival tool. It's a checklist to ensure you stop inheriting a mystery machine from the last guy, and, just as importantly, you stop leaving one for your teammates. Let's walk through exactly how this plays out on the floor.
The very first letter in our sequence is S, which stands for state. This is your starting line. It's all about giving the incoming operator an immediate, rock-solid baseline of where the press stands at this exact second.
And state doesn't mean a long, drawn-out story. It means giving just one clear, concise sentence. Right now, is the press producing, idle, in maintenance, or in a fault? What's the current job? What substrate is loaded? How much time is left? That's it. You're just painting a quick picture so the next operator isn't walking in completely blind.
From state, I move right into W, which is work done. Now, this focuses purely on the actions you already took during your shift.
Think of work done as literally handing over the complete record of your day. You physically walk through the whiteboard and the logbook. You explicitly point out the parts you replaced, the alerts you acknowledged, and, this is absolutely critical, any bypasses you installed. You are giving them the map of everything the machine has already been through today.
That brings us to I, for issues open. And this is all about explicit ownership of what is currently unresolved.
The big takeaway here is transferring ownership. You can't just toss out a casual, "Oh, hey, the feeder's acting up," as you walk away. No, you have to explicitly transfer those active workarounds and postponed tasks. If you called maintenance and you're still waiting for a callback, that is an open issue. Don't let it just get lost in the shuffle.
Once those open issues are crystal clear, it's time for T, trends. This is where you literally step away from the terminal. You take a brief walk together around the feeder, the engine, and the stacker to look at leading indicators.
Trends means pointing out those weird little things that haven't quite broken the machine yet. Is the color stability kind of drifting? Actually, scratch that. Maybe the mechanical sound of the stacker totally changed over the last 2 hours. You point these things out now, while they're still within tolerance, before they blow up into a massive shift-stopping headache for the next person. Next up is C, calls to action. This leans heavily on your gut feeling and your expertise as an operator to tell the next guy what needs to happen. Should they run the queued job? Should they hold for maintenance? Do they need to sample more frequently than normal? You are basically translating your 12 hours of intuition into a concrete proposed action for them.
Finally, we wrap up the sequence with H for handoff verified. And listen, the handshake only officially closes when this step happens. It involves a readback of the critical items, and then both operators physically put their signatures in the logbook with a timestamp. Boom. That proves the transfer actually took place.
Now, I know what you're thinking. How do you actually execute all 6 of these steps without losing your mind or, clocking out late? Well, you use a structured 50-minute timeline broken into 3 distinct windows. First, 30 minutes before shift change, you prep the logbook by yourself. Then, you have 10 minutes of joint handshake time with the new operator. And finally, there's a 10-minute post-handshake window where the new operator takes full control. This totally prevents that rushed, panicked, chaotic handover as you're running out the door.
But I want you to listen really closely to this. That 10 minutes of joint overlap at the idle press, that W2 window, it is sacred. It is the absolute only time both operators are looking at the exact same machine at the exact same time. It is vital infrastructure that protects your day. It should never, ever be compressed or treated as optional slack time by floor managers, period.
During that 10-minute joint window, you're going to use an ultimate defense mechanism borrowed straight from aviation and submarine crews, the readback. The incoming operator literally restates the critical items. They say, confirming active bypass on the feeder. It forces the brain to actually register the information. It only adds about 90 seconds to the whole handover, but I promise you, it saves hours of stress and downtime.
So, as you head into your next shift change, take a second and ask yourself this. Will the next operator inherit a clean state or a total mystery? I really challenge you to use the SWITCH framework as your daily contract. It's not just another checklist. It's exactly how you protect yourself, your fellow operators, and your machine from the sheer chaos of the unknown.